$1 million, you're investigating a sports story, and then there's somebody tweeting about it. So you want to follow the person's timeline, the person gives you this thing easily. Now, it's made your work easier. Yes. You don't need to go and take risk of breaking into the security, facing the president, and then getting yourself behind the bars. But it's made your work even much more dangerous, because they have laid an allegation that is supposed to take you around 36 states for you to verify whether the president actually stole that money. So these are the dynamics to the whole technology. But I don't feel technology has weakness on this. We are the ones who make technology what it is. Two persons can use the same mobile phone and get two different results. So I feel while we blame technology, we can't blame technology. We are the ones who control technology. So I feel sports journalists have what it takes to destroy themselves and to save themselves. So that is what technology has given us. It gives me an ease. I've worked for many years. In fact, this year I worked with close to 15 new publications from about 5 continents. I've not met them. It's basically Twitter, it's basically phone, it's basically laptop. Okay. And then it applies to sport journalism, it applies to every other thing. But there is a lot of carefulness in exploiting those benefits. So that's what I think we have to bring in the issue of ethics in the end. That's my take.
Wonderful take. Yes, the new life forms, new technology, or whatever it is, that evolves out of an old form, definitely will bring its own challenges, will bring its own issues to the fore. So yes, you're right. But now let's try to round this up. I know we've been here for close to an hour now. I want us to take a look at what the future holds for technology. We are, to give perspective to where we stand today. We are in the second generation of the information technology age. The personal computer was introduced in 1981. They say a generation is about 30 years, and we've passed that stage. 2011 was 30 years since the inception of the personal computer, and we've seen what the personal computer gave us and how many other things have evolved around that, including the smartphone. And of course, today, we went through the years when it was technology, what we call Web 1.0, where it was static websites, where it was just one-to-one interaction. It was you and the website. But today we have one-to-many interactions. So we're in Web 2.0 stage. The Web 2.0 stage gave us social media, which is one-to-many. We interact with many out there. So many things have evolved over time, and now we're in a stage where we're looking at where are we going to go with sports reporting and sports journalism. Like I say, you brought a very good point up in terms of there are many things to report in sports that doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily predicated on live events or live scores. Many people will follow live events and live scores, and maybe we have to find the medium where we blend in some of the critical reporting, some of the groundbreaking reporting into live events, so people can say, hey, wow, we didn't know this was happening. Maybe if they mention somebody, you say, well, this person or that person. Here in the United States where I reside, the ESPN has made it very, very possible to go into to do backstories on athletes and their families and things like that. And these are things that we in Africa need to start looking into to get that interest, the human interest. We talk about the 1996 Olympics and how the stories that evolved or were being developed or were being written at the time were more or less focused on how the event itself affected the nation, or how the nation as a whole played into the Olympic movement, and so these are things that we don't necessarily, I wouldn't say we don't necessarily look at, or we don't have a high focus on. But I don't know, with the quality of journalism that I see out there, in terms of sports journalism, I think we have some issues in terms of how people report things. But we are here. You guys are here. Very smart group, very astute. I really really respect what you all doing out there, and not because I know you guys, on a personal basis, but I'm really talking from the bottom of my heart. I really respect what you guys are doing. How do we see sports reporting evolving as technology evolves? Because, like I said, we're in the Web 2.0 age, and we don't know what's coming beyond Web 2.0. The level of interaction, the level of connections that we will develop over time. How do we see social media itself evolving? Because social media itself has to evolve. It has its own pluses and minuses, and like Orji rightfully said. So how do we see things evolving in the long run for not just us to stay relevant, but for us to bring to make sports, not just sports from an international perspective, but sports within our local communities important or relevant to folks within our local communities, and make sure that, in Africa, of course, we have the issue of the problem of everything being reported from an international perspective. Our focus, most of the matches that people watch in most countries in Africa are international. How do we bring the fans back home? How do we connect them to the local athletes, to the local stars, and make sure that with all the technological tools that we have at our disposal, that we're able to connect them to everything that we have at home, and so much so that we can give 60% content from local, and they can turn around and look at 40% outside, and that way we can get a bang for our buck. And at the same time, as much as we report, with no social media, nobody gets paid for posting stuff on social media. How do you earn your keep doing this job? And that's a big question, with having to post content for free out there and not having the necessary remunerations for your work, the work that you've put your heart and soul into, and your blood, sweat, and tears into. How do we move forward, Yemi?
Well, I think it will take a lot of creativity, because just like we have mentioned, having all of these tools at our disposal, it will take a lot of creativity to make the most of it. Like I think it was Orji who talked about how journalism itself has sort of there's a shift now where journalists aren't as hardworking or dynamic as before. Maybe a lot of people are now more lazy. You're just okay with putting out maybe updates or something. I think especially for those of us in Africa, there are a lot of stories, we can tell. Like you, Leslie, for example, you mentioned the backstories of a lot of those athletes. We know that when we look at the lives of our sportsmen and women, a lot of them have very interesting stories, very interesting backgrounds. They are grass to grace stories, and so many other things. So we have to be able to look beyond, what we need to post instantly now. For example, you're at the competition, posting results and all of that. Fine, everyone else will do that, but one has to now go the extra mile, to get the stories that will really, really connect with people. The backstories of a lot of those people, exclusive content that, in fact, you're the only person, that has access to such stuff, that when you break it, it actually goes viral. It helps your brand. You're also creating more publicity, for that athlete or that sportsman and woman. There are so many of those things, which we do not do. Now, we're just content with, let's break out, let's be the first to publish the news story, and then that is all, and then we don't go beyond that. So we need to be willing to make that extra effort to see that we produce content that will actually promote our local stars, because we do not promote them enough. We do not promote them a lot.
That's true.
It's like now, the craze is just for, the international this and that. But we have so much content, at our respective homes or home countries, that if we were to focus on that, we can really do a lot. We can really churn out a lot of stories that will go a long way, in promoting both our brand and whoever it is we're talking about. But in doing that too, it's also very tricky, right? Because now we also have a generation that have a lot of things beckoning, so now everyone has a smartphone. So even in publishing or putting out some of this content, one needs to be creative, one needs to be smart, one needs to also face reality. Like we have the Z generation now, everything is there, entertainment, sports, all of that. And so one will need to be very careful. And just like I talked about creativity, this new generation, so they aren't as patient, right, as our generation or the generation before us. So one must be willing to get to the point, or also do stuff that will interest them and keep them, focused on that which you're writing or putting out. So one needs to be able to strike a balance, which is going to be the tricky thing. Because even in providing all of that information, it must also be something that is worthy of their time, worthy of their attention, because there are just too many things, calling out for their attention. So it's a tricky one, but I believe it's something, one has to do, right? Because the future is digital. And so we have no choice, but to just follow that trend and make sure that as much as possible, we're able to adapt with the times and produce content that will keep people glued to our platforms.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. That's a great take. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It'll take a lot of creativity. It'll take a lot of dynamism on one's part to juxtapose a lot of things, bring a lot of tools together to keep our audiences focused on what we're trying to put out. And yes, there's a lot coming. The technology is not even halfway done in terms of its evolution. So we have to constantly adapt as we go along. And I feel also that education is key as well. I think a lot of people feel like once you have completed a degree program, I think you feel like you've arrived or you're done. No, but learning is a continuous process. And so we too have to continue to learn and continue to educate ourselves in the trade that we're in. Nathaniel, what's your take on the future? What do you think the future holds for sports journalism and for reporting as a whole?
For me, I think we would have to put in extra effort, get exclusive stories. Currently, what we do is we look at stories that on the normal day people will not be expecting. So in our table tennis field, in every tournament, we try and interview kids who are 5 years, 4 years, who are participating in events that usually would have kids who are like 8 years or 9 years. So, and we try to get their background, how they manage to enter into the sport. So we find out very good stories about them. People who read give their feedback and say, wow, these are some of the stories that make me come to your website to read. Also, we look at women who have stopped sports to go and give birth to 2, 3 kids and come back and have broken the sweat barrier to come back to become active players and have excelled. We have one former national champion called Cynthia Kwabi. She's gone for 3 Commonwealth games. She stopped table tennis for a while. She went to give birth to 2 kids. She came back this year and she qualified for the Commonwealth Games. So I did this story and it was published on the ITTF website and it gained a lot of readership. So now, for us as journalists, we would need to go out and fish for stories that would make exclusive news and try to not to depend on other people too much for their stories. Now the stories are coming to us via other sites. We would need to verify the authenticity of these stories before we bring them out. if these stories are bad stories that we are promoting, we are going to lose credibility and people will stop using as